There's something about Hades' roster of NPCs that makes them into actual characters to give a crap about, and it set my noggin jogging trying to figure out why. And what I found, beyond the outstanding quality of the dialogue, there are two big reasons. One very obvious, and the other one not so much. The obvious reason is the sheer volume of dialogue in the game, reportedly over 300,000 words, which is as long as my 2 fantasy novels combined. Here's the plug, they're awesome, give them a chance. But most importantly, this dialogue is given out in brief 2 or 3 sentence exchanges every time you encounter a given character, so they never repeat themselves, and that is huge toward making them so much more believable. There's a reason it's been a long-running joke to poke fun at video game NPCs repeating scripted dialogue like the programs they are. I mean, this really has bothered me since the beginning of my gaming experiences. I would argue it's the most dehumanizing trope for video game NPCs, to the point I went out of my way, back when I wrote a character mod for Baldur's Gate 2, and made sure Imoen would have an unreasonable amount of randomized greetings and musings to herself. Anyway, to reinforce this lack of repetition, Hades makes the excellent choice not to allow you to just interact again once the bit of dialogue is done. They're not going to repeat the same line over and over. It humanizes even those who do repeat themselves now and then. But hey, if you want to know a surefire way to stop anyone from talking, stay tuned for the sponsor of this video. Are you sick and tired of hearing complaints when all you want to do is enjoy your bounty of flesh? Do your basement guests constantly bring up their needs without regard for your peace of mind? Did one of your compelled residents manage to vocalize an address on the phone and now you have to switch locations? Or maybe your partner keeps saying the safe word without permission. Oh boy, do I have a solution for you. Enter the Jonathan & Jonathan Face Cage. It comes with adjustable straps, an all-pervasive mouth gag, and a variety of colors. Never again leave your house in fear someone might call for help. Use my discount code SILENCESGolden30 for a massive 10% discount on a purchase of $400 or more. Hurry up, guys. I don't support any products I don't use myself, so I know demand is super high. Get yours before those willful little troublemakers can call the police. Now, back to Hades. It's striking how this excellent characterization shows you don't really need complex behaviors to flesh out your characters' lives. Even if they are just standing models standing there in their spot all the time, it doesn't matter. The way they are written and the way they deliver that writing elevates them closer to people than any elaborate Elder Scrolls town-wandering routine ever could. The second reason is this.
So you decided to step in.
I'm back, ladies.
This really made an impact on my perception. What other video game have you heard little interjections like this? I'm sure they exist, but I honestly cannot think of even one. It's such a huge amount of character delivered in a tiny, hyper-efficient package. I absolutely love them. These sounds, these bits of dialogue between the lines, people make these noises and small comments all the time in real life, but so seldom in scripted media, especially in video games, because in video games so often lines are recorded in batches with actors not even in the same room for conversations, just line after line after line delivered verbatim from the script without any real humanity. These wordless noises convey so much emotion, though unfortunately they really call attention to themselves in prose. You either inject a weird sequence of letters like ak or psh or gr, or you spin a whole ass sentence to convey these tiny sounds, something like, she clicked her tongue. Look at you. They always do this. At least you didn't lose your bladder. You see, it must be used sparingly or you cluttered your dialogue with these things. But a voiced video game line, it's the perfect medium to do it just right, and Hades takes advantage of that. My favorite character has the highest incidence of these interjections, and you've been watching her take shape on screen, Megara, first of the Furies. I found her arc the most engaging because she got this gnarly emotional, moral, and professional conflict going on throughout her story. Here's one of the Furies, a divine spawn/she-devil tasked with punishing the criminals in the underworld, who's developed a romantic relationship with Zagreus, her boss's hunky son. And all's well until our intrepid protagonist gets it in his head to escape the underworld to meet his mother, and suddenly it becomes Megara's job to stop him by any means necessary. In her dialogue, we get to see her struggle as she deals with this brutal situation that Zagreus' betrayal has put her in. She's got these conflicted feelings of affection and resentment, and the fact that they're constantly killing each other is pretty rough too, especially as Zagreus grows in power and starts ruffle stomping her into the ground, making her into a huge incompetent failure at her job. She tries to appeal to the people helping Zagreus to no avail, and she ends up coping by telling you, "You're only beating me because of all the buffs you've unlocked," which then you can proceed to deactivate, meet her in the field, and hand her ass to her once more, which, makes her humiliation complete. And yes, indeed, the game has dialogue to cover this specific situation, and it will not surprise me in the slightest if it also has dialogue if she beats you in this instance. All the while, Zagreus makes gifts to her and tries to convince her it's nothing personnel, kid. He says, "I don't want to fight you, I'm just trying to get past you." But that doesn't change the shit situation she's in now, does it? That hunky boy, though, he's such a charmer. And Megara ends up in this weird spot where she doesn't want to fight you either, it's just her duty. Eventually, she gets let off the hook by her sisters getting involved and getting wrecked as well, taking the pressure off her shoulders to be the one constantly failing to stop you. She's still going to try and murder you, but she's no longer the giant failure responsible for your actions. This gives her leeway to once more get involved romantically if you so desire, especially once you get far enough for the credits to roll. The dynamic changes and her conflict pretty much resolves satisfactorily. It's not the most romantic or healthy relationship you could get into, but it's extremely compelling, at least for my sensibilities. And this all nicely ties in with what you've been doing gameplay-wise, to the point I can't even tell you what came first, gameplay or narrative. Well, it was gameplay, it was definitely gameplay, but regardless, this gives you a nice bit of insight of how well integrated they are and how both aspects must have been thoroughly intertwined throughout the development of the game. I do feel I should also point out it's really weird to think this gal watched our protagonist grow up from baby through childhood to hunk and then proceeded to pounce on his bones? But come on, it's based on Greek mythology. This type of stuff comes with the territory. Enjoy the ride and don't think too hard about it. Megara's tale of failure and cope while simultaneously being wooed with gifts by the person responsible for such humiliation and strife. It really inspired me to take up the digital pen again after months of not drawing anything. I was fairly trepidatious that I would struggle horribly and not produce anything even close to what I wanted. But really the only frustrating part in all this was the rough sketch at the very beginning, getting a pose and a perspective I liked. There were a lot of false starts with that. With some distance now, I'm staring at it and I'd say there's something odd with her face, too stiff, too flat maybe. If you gave me a pen and told me to fix it, I honestly don't know what I would do other than redraw the whole thing and hope it turns out better. But overall, I'm quite proud of the background, most of all. Not because it looks particularly amazing or anything, but because it was so daunting to try and recreate the actual House of Hades from a screenshot and transpose it into this down-to-the-ground perspective. It seemed like a lot of work and effort, but I told myself, oh, just freaking do it! And started putting down colors without thinking too much about it, and eventually it got to a decent state. It was actually nice not to care too much about the details, since I knew it would be blurred and tinted in the final stage to hopefully convey the sense of depth. The whole thing did end up taking quite a bit longer than I thought though, about 6 hours in total, but all in all, I'm really happy with the result. I'm glad I spent the time doing it. I hope you are glad to have spent the time watching it. Needless to say, Hades is a great game, well worth playing. I came very late to this party. As my parting message, I'd like to say,
Praise Shaglaroth and may you forever despair in his unholy embrace!